everyone, what's up? I'm CTB Motionless, you can call me Savage, and welcome to my very first deck profile video. And this video is going to be, well, it's going to be the Speedroid archetype. Yeah, I decided to make a Speedroid deck, and the reason why in the first place is because I recently purchased the Legendary Duelist Synchro Storm box, and when I say recently, I mean this previous weekend. Yeah. And it's actually a box I hadn't purchased. I actually missed purchasing this box. So I finally took the opportunity, bought it, and I made 2 decks out of it actually, which I will be doing the other deck as well in a later video because, well, I gotta adjust some stuff here and there. But that being said, these decks that I am making, heads up, are supposed to be beginner budget friendly, such as that, or noob friendly even at that. It's supposed to be budget friendly, and I have no intent of making anyone spend a ridiculous amount of money for some cardboard. Trust me, as much as I would love to, I'm not going to do that. And this is just meant for a casual player. So let's hurry up, let's get into the deck profile, and well let me just... Alright, so let's get into this. First of all, I am going to, of course, read their name, and I am going to read their attribute, levels, the text box, obviously their effects, the attack and defense. That being said, to save us actually plenty of time in the first place, is in this deck almost everything is a wind machine monster. I'm going to say this now just so I can save us plenty of time in that regard, but if they're not either wind or machine, I will mention it when I get to that card. I believe there's only like 2 anyway, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, let's move ahead. First of all, we have Speedroid Terrortops. If you're not running Speedroid Terrortops in your deck, you are wrong. Now mind you, it is unfortunately limited, and when I say unfortunately, I mean fortunately, because this card is a terror, and I did do that on purpose. First of all, it is a level 3 with 1200 attack, 600 defense. Effect: if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand, except Speedroid Terrortop. You can only use the effect of Speedroid Terrortops once per turn. So basically, this is a nice searchability of a card, which is a good starter, which I now completely understand why it is indeed limited. It is actually pretty darn strong. That being said, up next we are running into 3 Speedroid Totem Bird, which is a level 3 with 600 attack, 1200 defense. Effect: if you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can tribute this card, special summon 1 Speedroid Tuner from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except wind monsters, which is not a restriction whatsoever. You can only special summon 1 Speedroid Borg once per turn. I said Borg, it's actually his name. I just could never pronounce his name, I'm going to be real. So that being said, this right here is definitely really good. All that nonsense, but once I'm going to say this right now, actually I'm not going to explain any strategies right here right now. I will save that till the end of the video so you can get an idea of how you can use these cards and how they are indeed Gucci. That being said, we are running 3 Speedroid Car Turbos. You gotta love these boys. It is of course a level 3 with 800 attack, 1200 defense. It is also a tuner. Effect: if you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot activate effects or monster effects for the rest of this turn except wind monsters. Once again, the false restriction. You can banish this card and for the rest and one you can banish this card and 1 Speedroid monster from your graveyard. All wind monsters you currently control gain 800 attack until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect of Speedroid Car Turbo once per turn, which is a pretty decent attack boost, if I do say so myself. It can come in clutch sometimes. I have been luckily able to beat over some things here and there before, but I don't really use that effect that often. I usually use it just so I can special summon it from my hand and go into synchro plays. Speaking of synchro plays, up next we have Speedroid RedEyed Dice. It is a level 1 with 100 attack, 100 defense, also a tuner. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Speedroid monster you control, accept Speedroid RedEyed dice, and declare one level from 1 to 6. It becomes that level until the end of the turn. First of all, that is not a once per turn, so keep that in mind if you, if you can. That being said, it actually is a pretty decent effect, if I do say so myself, which help you go into more synchro plays. But also keep in mind that you can only target other Speedroid monsters and not RedEyed dice itself. I'm mentioning this because I sometimes forget that it cannot target itself. So sometimes I look foolish, and I have made a few misplays because of that. Also keep in mind that you can only choose a level from 1 to 6 as well, because sometimes your boy sucks at math and didn't realize that I couldn't choose Speedroid RedEyed dice until I played it, and then I look like a fool because the monster who I'm trying to do other nonsense with is a level 6, so there's no benefit for me whatsoever at that moment. I'm just making it clear because this is supposed to be a friendly deck for noobs, a noob friendly deck, so just pointing that out there. Speaking of which, up next we have 3 of Speedroid Double Yoyo, which is a pretty darn good card. It has come in clutch multiple times for me, and the reason why is because when this card is normal summon, you could target one level 3 or lower Speedroid monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Also, I did forget to mention that it is indeed a level 4 with 1400 attack and 1400 defense. So it's alright, it's pretty good. I have gone into plays where I've gone ahead and summoned, I used it mainly after I already did my other combos from a previous turn, and then I normal summon Speedroid Double Yoyo, and sometimes I go ahead and pick Terrortops, Etika, but once again, saving strategies for later. Let's go into the next card, which is Speedroid Horse Stilts, which is indeed a level 4 monster with 1100 attack and 1100 defense. Effect: when this card is normal summon, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Speedroid monster from your hand during your, I'm going way too fast and reading it awkwardly with no pause. But yes, basically when you normal summon this card, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Speedroid monster from your hand. That is it. Now mind you, it has another effect that I don't actually use that often, but I have used before. During your main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, send one wind monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect with Speedroid Horse Stilts once per turn. Unfortunately, I don't like the second effect that much, just due to the fact that I have to wait another turn to activate this effect. I wish I could normal summon this, bring out a tuner, do some synchro nonsense, and then activate his effect to send something to the graveyard setup. But I completely understand why in regards of trying to make something balanced, but that's just me being slightly picky. Up next, we have Speedroid Ultra Hound, which is a level 3 with 800 attack and 800 defense. It is an effect monster. That being said, it has the effect of, when this card is normal summon, you can send one Speedroid card from your deck to the graveyard. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Speedroid monster in your graveyard, shuffle into the deck. And if you do, special summon one Speedroid Synchro monster from your extra deck with the same level but a different name, but negate its effects. You can only use this effect of Speedroid Ultra Hound once per turn. Unfortunately, I have no use of the second effect just because majority of the Speedroid monsters in this deck, if not all of them, aren't really high enough level for the Speedroid extra deck monsters that I have, unfortunately. So I really never use the second effect. However, I do enjoy the second effect because it does do some graveyard setup, which I was actually able to use in a duel before, which I will explain later, blah blah blah, you've heard that already. Up next, we have Speedroid Marble Machine. This card is a pendulum and the only pendulum in this deck, and it's actually pretty alright. I actually don't use the pendulum effect, but I guess I'll mention it anyway. once again, forgot to mention, it is indeed a level 2 with 200 attack and 100 defense. Its pendulum scales are 1, and its pendulum effect is once per turn when your defense position monsters is targeted for an attack, you can change it to face-up attack position. Also, it cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, even if the card leaves the field. I never use that effect. I have never used its pendulum effect whatsoever. Never even thought about doing it. I actually forgot it even did that. And I see why I forgot, because I never use it and it's not that important. Anyway, let's go into its monster effect, which is when this card is normal summon, you can activate this effect, add 1 Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except wind monsters, the false restriction. You can only use this effect, the Speedroid Marble Machine, once per turn, and that is the effect that I really care about. I just like the easy search ability to add stuff to my hand, give it to me, and this deck did indeed give it to me. Up next, we have Speedroid Daiko Duke. I actually like this card. I think this card is actually underrated in my deck for some reason, but I love him. It is indeed a level 3 with 1000 attack and 1000 defense. It is also a tuner. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Speedroid tuner from your hand or graveyard, except Speedroid Daiko Duke. You can only use this effect Speedroid Daiko Duke once per turn. Now, the good news is it doesn't have that stupid restriction that a lot of the Speedroids have while they're in the graveyard, where you have to wait until another turn to use. So the good news is you can go ahead, and if you do a bunch of nonsense in the first place, and let's say you have a tuner that's indeed in the graveyard, who knows, maybe you did some graveyard setup with some of the cards that I mentioned earlier, and you managed to get, you know, Den out into the field. Once you do some synchro stuff, you can go ahead and search another tuner. I've done some stuff with that, but whatever. Up next, we are running 1 Speedroid Block and Roll. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can special summon 1 Speedroid token, machine wind, attack, 0 attack and defense, with a level equal to the original level of this synchro monster that used this card as a material. You can only use this effect, Speedroid Block and Roll, once per turn. I hardly get a chance to actually use that effect, but when I do, it actually does feel pretty darn good. I've extended into other synchro monsters that are slightly bigger, but I didn't want to get rid of my current synchro monster who has that same level. So it's a pretty okay card. But that being said, though, I did actually forget to mention that it is indeed a level 4 with 1000 attack and 1800 defense. So it's a pretty okay wall, if that. But anyway, that is it for the Speedroid monsters in the deck. There's only 2 other cards that are, or 2 other monster cards that are not a wind machine or part of the Speedroid archetype. And that right there, I'm running 1 Miss Valley Baby Rock, which I have used this card actually a couple times, way more than I expected. Of being, when this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can special summon it. It is a winged beast tuner with 400 attack, 600 defense, 2 stars. And also Miriam the True Draco Phoenix, which is a, actually what level are, oh my god, is that 9 I want to say? Yeah, that is a level 9 with 2700 attack, 2100 defense. It is a worm, and it has a nice effect of, if this card is in your hand, you can destroy 2 other monsters in your hand and or face up on the field, including a wind monster. And if you do, special summon this card, and if you do that and both destroyed monsters were wind, you can also banish exactly 4 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. If this card is destroyed by card effect, you can add 1 non-wind worm monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Miriam the True Draco Phoenix once per turn. I have used this, and I've used this on the first turn before after doing a bunch of crazy funny nonsense, and I've gone ahead and just removed the top 4 cards of my opponent's deck to disrupt any future play they may have. And it did actually help me win a duel. Now mind you, a duel. The guy was, he's playing Cyber Dragons, and I'm not gonna front, he did indeed clap my cheeks, but you know, I did go first. I did disrupt one of his plays, and yeah, it was a I did lose, obviously, 2-1. He won 2 duels, I won 1. I won the second game. It was actually pretty darn good play to disrupt, and not gonna front, rubbed it in for a second, and that's why I got clapped in the third game. But anyway, that is all the monster cardos in this right here, at least in the main deck. Next, we're gonna move on to the spell cards. We are running 3 speed recovery. This is a good spell. A free spell at that. Target 1 Speedroid monster in your graveyard, special summon it. That is it. That's amazing. Don't even care about the second effect. I'll even read the second effect just because I forget what it does. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you could banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Speedroid monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Oh, never mind. I lied. I do remember that effect because I've used it before, because one time my board got freaking wiped out anyway, and I was at least able to use speed recovery to get some combos back. I was able to get my Terrortops back in my hand when I needed it. So that's pretty darn neat. Up next, we have 3 speed lifts, which are also epic. If you control exactly 1 tuner and no other monsters, special summon 1 level 4 or lower Speedroid monster from your deck. Neither player can activate cards or effects when that monster is special summoned. So this is actually a pretty good card. The only downside is if you're that you can't use your Speedroids, neat effects where it says if it's like special summoned, you can activate this effect or blah blah blah. So that does suck. But the good news is your opponent can't really stop you. So it's pretty good, if I do say so myself. It is also a quick play. So that means you can play this on your opponent's turn, or maybe in their end phase, such as that. Maybe you can scare them with something, do something. It's actually pretty decent. I did enjoy it, and I use speed lift all the time, usually during my opponent's end phase. Now that being said, up next we're going to Harpy's Feather Duster. I had this simply for back row removal because I am a paranoid boy. I'm also running 1 Rygecki as well, so I can nuke boards ahead of time. Actually, more often than not, I actually use the Rygecki to bait people, but that's just me. I'm pretty sure other people do the same thing. They play Rygecki to see if they can activate someone's negates if possible and go from there. I'm also running the recently removed from the ban list Change of Heart, simply because, well, I can. Who's gonna stop me? I ain't gonna stop me. And I will most of the time actually use the idea. I sometimes actually use Change of Heart just to troll. Sometimes I use Change of Heart and I don't gain the oh so wonderful benefits that come from using 2 wind monsters, but sometimes I'll go ahead and steal the material and use it for Miriam or for a certain other monster that is in my extra deck, which I will go further into later. But that being said, I have 2 more spells, and that right there is 2 Quill Pen of Guldos, I don't know how that's pronounced, which allows you to target 2 wind monsters from your graveyard and 1 card on the field. Shuffle both those first 2 targets into your deck, and if you do, return the other to the hand. I've actually used this card on myself before, hilariously enough, where I had a pretty okay board. But the thing is, I did have 1 monster that was on the board that is just completely weak and frail. And there were some cards that could be searched by it. So I went ahead and actually returned it back to my hand. I think it was actually RedEyed dice. I think it was when I accidentally misplayed and I just had them on the field doing nothing. So I recovered some cards from my deck, from my graveyard into my deck, shuffled them in there, and returned RedEyed dice back to my hand, and actually went off on another combo later because I had the luck of the gods and my drawing power. So that is all I have for spell cards, and now we're gonna move on to trap cards, which I am running 3 of. Speedroid Duplicate, which is banish 1 wind monster from your graveyard, then target 1 card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 level 2 or higher Speedroid monster you control, reduce its level by 1, and if you do, special summon this card as a normal monster, which will become a machine tuner wind level 1 attack in defense are going to be 0. This card is not treated as a trap card. You can only use this effect of Speedroid Duplicate once per duel. Yes, once per duel. Now, mind you, I'm running 3 just because, you know, I don't mind banishing some wind monsters from my graveyard, just so I can, you know, bounce a card back to my opponent's hand. Sometimes I use it to target their extra deck monsters just to be a prick, and I do think that is also really neat. So, awesome. Also, I am running 2 Liberty at last. I don't know why I put it like that. I'm sorry. All upside down and stuff. And when a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, target 2 face-up monsters on the field, shuffle those targets into the deck. You can guess why I do that. It's awesome. I like using this card. A lot of my action does happen in the battle phase, and sometimes I'll actually just outright crash a card into one just so I can play Liberty at last. Like, I've done this before where I've had no exact method on how to destroy a few monsters, so I just outright just crashed into it, and they're usually extra deck monsters, and I'll go ahead and just get my own card destroyed, and then just to return 2 of my opponent's annoying cards out on the field that don't have any protection because I baited it with Rygecki like a fool. But you know, that is it. Alright, and last but not least, we're going into the extra deck because that's what we gotta do, baby. I'm gonna start with, of course, most of these are all one-ofs, mind you. So adjust as necessary, because some people might think some are necessary to have multiple copies. I haven't had the necessity of doing that. So first card I'm going to talk about, I think I'm going to move from the down and move my way up. I think that makes sense. So starting off with, I only have 1 Link monster. I'm just running Nightmare Unicorn. Now mind you, I've only used this card a few times. It's not like I'm actually using it for any distinct purpose. I honestly just have it just because. It is of course a Link 3 monster with 2200 attack. It requires 2+ monsters with different names. If this card is Link summoned, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 card in the field, shuffle it into the deck. Then, if this card was co-linked when effect was activated, you can draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Nightmare Unicorn once per turn. While any co-linked Nightmare monsters are on the field, for your normal draw in your draw phase, draw 1 card for each different card name among these or those co-linked Nightmare monsters, instead of drawing just 1 card. Now, I never use the second effect because I literally only have just Nightmare Unicorn from the archetype of Nightmares, so, you know, sucks to suck, but I do like the idea that I can return a card from the field and then shuffle it back into the deck. That's just a decent effect, and sometimes it comes in clutch. I've actually used this before, but, you know, once again, it's rare, it's not that big of a deal. Up next, we have Totem Bird. You know, it is a winged beast monster with 1900 attack, 1400 defense. It requires 2 level 3 wind monsters. When a spell trap card is activated, quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. This card loses 300 attack while it has no materials, which is actually a pretty good effect. It's okay. It's an okay effect. Totem Bird is pretty decent. Nothing crazy, but it does have a nice once per turn negate that you're only going to use once anyway. That being said, up next we have Tornado Dragon, which is a rank 4 with 2100 attack, 2000 defense. It is a worm, and it requires 2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. Simple as that. That's the only reason I have it, just in case if, once again, I have back row issues, I have it right then and there. Now we're going into the Synchro monsters, the things that we care about. First of all, we are running a high-speed Chambara. It is a level 5 wind machine Synchro with 2000 attack, 1000 defense. It requires 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner monster. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles, it gains 200 attack. By the way, that is indeed permanent. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Speedroid cards, add it to your hand. You can only special summon hi-speedroid Chambara once per turn, which is pretty darn neat if I do say so myself. We just like the fact that it can attack twice to get an attack boost anyway, so you can potentially get an attack boost twice, and it is indeed permanent. But also has that nice effect where if it is removed from the field, you can grab one of your banished cards. So let's say you bring this card onto the field. If you have any cards that are banished and then you synchro it away because you get another tuner out there to go into something, bing bada boom, just like that, you can go ahead and grab that banished card. Up next, we have Virtual World Beast Juju. It is a level 6 Psycho Synchro monster with 2400 attack, 1700 defense. It requires 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while you have 2 or more monsters in your graveyard with the same original type and attribute, but different names. In this deck, that is absolutely ridiculously easy for obvious reasons. You can banish 2 monsters from your graveyard with the same original type and attribute but different names, then target 1 card in the field and send it to the graveyard, which is a non-destruction effect, which is actually pretty darn good to an extent. Now there's a lot of cards that do indeed float, so they may not matter too much, but I do think that it is indeed nice that it is an option. By the way, you can only use this effect once per turn. Up next, we're going to an actual hi-speedroid, another one. Hi-speedroid Kite Drake. It is indeed a level 8 wind machine synchro with 3000 attack, 2800 defense. It requires 1 wind machine tuner and 1 non-tuner monster. If this card is synchro summoned, you can activate one of these effects. You can either destroy all other cards on the field, which is based, or you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can add 1 Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now, I have actually gotten both this card and Juju on the field before while having 2 wind machines in the graveyard, obviously. And it was, let's just say it was glorious. Up next, we have Virtual World QB Shenshen. It is a level 9 Wind Psychic with 2800 attack, 2400 defense. It requires 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner monster. Any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead. You can only use each of the following effects of Virtual World QB Shenshen once per turn. When your monster declares an attack, you can return 1 banished monster to the owner's graveyard. During your main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you could banish 2 other monsters from your graveyard with different original types and attributes from each other. Special summon this card from your graveyard. That is pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. It is actually a pretty good effect that I don't get to use that often, unfortunately, because to have different original types and attributes from each other, it's not happening in this deck. But just know Shenshen is definitely good for those mix and match decks that you crazy kids have out there. Now, last but not least, we have hi-speedroid Clearwing Rider. It is a wind level 11 machine synchro monster with 3500 attack and 2000 defense. It requires 1 wind tuner and 1 non-tuner wind synchro monster. Once per turn during your main phase, you can roll a 6-sided die and shuffle a wind monster from your graveyard into your deck up to the result. Then you can destroy cards your opponent controls, up to the number shuffled, and if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each. By God, that's crazy. But gains 500 attack for each card destroyed, by the way, by this effect, until the end of the turn. During your opponent's main phase, you can tribute this Synchro summon card, special summon up to 2 level 7 Wind Synchro monsters with different names from each other from your extra deck, which I am salty that I actually don't have any level 7 Wind Synchro monsters. No, I'm genuinely salty. I'm actually going to go out of my way to purchase some online so I can add it to this deck for this effect, and that's it. I'm not lying. I'm going to go do that. But that being said, this is a wonderful boss monster to have. It can potentially have 6,500 attack. No, excuse me. I did math. No, did I do math wrong? No, I did math right. This card could have potentially 6,500 attack, and you can easily just remove stuff from your opponent's side of the field, which is just dandy. And after doing all that wonderful destruction, you can go ahead and just wait until next turn. As soon as your opponent decides to do anything, you can cough and you can just activate his effect and go off into another couple of synchros in your extra deck, which is pretty freaking nice. Like, I'm serious, I'm going to actually buy some wonderful cards just so I can do that. But, I digress. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, cookie milks. Please also be sure to ring that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a video. And that being said, I know I kept saying I was going to show combos and stuff for you to use into the video and all that, but this video is way too freaking long for that, and I'm gonna be real, I'm going to save that for another video. Yeah, I'll probably make that like tomorrow's video or something. I don't know yet, we'll figure it out. So I hope to see you guys next time real soon. Peace.
By at night, I be in my feelings, I'ma be fine, need time and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings, I'ma be fine, need time and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens, got will, got